A number of times I've blogged and also spoke briefly about something called Parkinson's law. Now, Parkinson's law is a term that's used often in social sciences to describe a phenomena where the more time you give a task to be completed, the more work it will take, the more you'll fill up that time to make it to get to the end point. It's used often in organizational psychology to describe how shorter deadlines can be better than longer ones and things like that. And it's something that I see a lot in people's private lives, in our personal lives as well. Increasingly so, actually, ironically, because we're living in a time where we have generally more labor-saving devices than ever before. But I think that's being counterweighed by distractions, if I'm frank. We have so many electronic gadgets and information we're bombarded with 24/7. A lot of us are probably borderline addicted to our smartphones and maybe don't realize it. And I'm not pointing to any fingers, I'm no better than anyone else at this. But the results of this really come into play and describe what Parkinson's law is very clearly. I always use the analogy of moving from a smaller place to a bigger place. I remember when I moved from a one-bedroom apartment to a larger 3-bed. And my one bedroom was not particularly full of stuff, but it was getting a bit cramped and crowded. And we had to move because we were having a baby and we needed more space. And we had a good deal at the time. And when we moved into this 3-bed, we were kind of overwhelmed a bit by how big the place was. We had this huge amount of space. We had 3 rooms. We don't have enough stuff. We're never going to fill this up. We can just put the living room in one bedroom, and I'll use one of the bedrooms as a little office or something. Fast forward 6 months, all the cupboards were full, both bedrooms were full. We brought a sofa bed, had another bed in there as well, and things started to get a bit cramped to the point where we actually had to start looking for decluttering ideas. And that's kind of Parkinson's law. The more time we give stuff, the more we fill up things. And I tend to see this a lot with people often delaying decisions. And there's nothing wrong, of course, with making an informed decision, doing your homework, doing your due diligence, being careful. You have to do that. That's I wouldn't expect anyone to make a rush decision on anything. But we often see people, including myself, taking a lot longer to make very quick decisions when they have all the information at hand than we used to. And as I touched on earlier, I think a lot of that is down to the distractions we have now. There's been a blurring between work-life balance in many industries and professions, and we're just overwhelmed with information. And so I think from a purely psychological, mental health perspective, I think we could all do with taking a step back and finding ways of decluttering our own lives from time to time. List out our priorities, what's really important, the top 5 things in the day. Everything else can get pushed back to the next day. Limiting our screen time where possible, which is really hard in the modern era because we're just work and screen time is just so linked. And just taking a step back from it all, just to take a breather, and then setting ourselves more goals that are time dependent. Saying, I'm going to read that document I need in the next 2 days, for the insurance renewal or the new contract or whatever it is, and get that done. I'm going to take 15 minutes to read it because it doesn't take that long, or a form needs filling out. I'm not going to leave that in the back and do 400 other things. It's a really tough one because we've got, as I said, so many distractions now. And I think for some of us, more and more, we may even need to start looking at things like coaching. And obviously there's a wider structural issue with how we work and things like that. But I always thought it was a fascinating phenomenon, and it's one that unfortunately I think is holding back a lot of us. And it's something worth looking at. I'm very interested in the psychology and motivations behind why we do things, why we invest in certain things, the needs we have, the goals we have. And Parkinson's law is coming up as a big thing that's preventing a lot of people from taking the right steps, which will make their lives easier down the line. So I thought I'd share that with you as a little thought.